Hey guys, trust that you are well. My name is Emmanuel. I am a developer relations engineer here at Aventus Network. And today what I want to do is to run you through using the Lowering DApp as a programmer programmatically. Now, the Lowering DApp, as you can see here, is a DApp that allows you to move your funds from the Aventus network to the Ethereum network. And I've created videos about using the Lowering DApp on desktop or using them on mobile. But for today, I want to show you how to use it programmatically. That is, using it in such a way that the step one doesn't begin in the DApp itself, but it begins in your code, in whatever DApp you've used the Aventus Gateway code in, whatever product you're running the Aventus Gateway code in. The lowering can begin there and it can end here in the DApp. So I'm going to walk you through it. The first thing we need to do is to go to the Aventus Gateway documentation to see the code that we need for this implementation and then to extract those codes from the documentation. So go in there. This is the Aventus Gateway documentation. Now, I want to go to Get Started. Going to Get Started, I want to go to Transactions. That's where I will see the lower tokens here. Now, you can read this to get a little bit more information about what the lower token code is and see the breakdown here. We have provided an example. This is the example result. So this is basically the UUID that is returned from the gateway. You want to see that to know that your transaction has been submitted, right? Then we also provide another way of doing it, just in RPC, and then what you expect to get from that. So just showing you these options. Now, just looking at this code, you can immediately tell that there are some things that you would need to fill in yourself. For example, your account SURI, we have some information here with ellipsis, some other information here like that. So you would need to have that information to eventually use this code successfully and submit your transaction. And I'll be showing you where to get that information from. So the first thing I want to get here is the Aventus Gateway URL. Now, coming back to the documentation here, going to the setup section, we have networks. On the networks page, you have information about the mainnet and testnet. This information here comprises of the Aventus Gateway URL, the relay account for that network, and the AVT contract address for that network. So this demo I'm going to be doing for you is on the testnet, so I'm going to be using the information that relates to the testnet. We're going to grab that information right there, and we're going to grab this information right here. We're going to need this for our code once we get into our code. The next thing that we need is the lower code itself, right? So going back to the lower tokens page, you want to scroll down. Essentially, all you need here is this. You can write your code as you want to structure it, but I'm going to go with the example here because I've put in everything I would need to do this code successfully. So I'll be running through, I'll just copy this example code and use it, but essentially all you need is just that bit at the top, and then you can provide all the other information as it's required in your code. So I'm going to copy this here by clicking on the copy function there, and now I've copied that away. Now, another key part of submitting a transaction using code is that you can also poll for the status of the transaction. Now, I'm not going to be doing that on this particular demo, but I'd like to show you where to find that code so that when you do submit a transaction, you know how to poll and request the status of the transaction. Has it been processed? Has it been rejected? You can poll that information and get that directly once you submit your transaction. So to do that and get that, you come down to queries. In the queries section, you want to go to query transaction state. Now, this would basically tell you the results field, the possible status outcomes of your transaction. Again, it details an example result, JSON RPC output. So we've provided a lot of information here about how to send a transaction and how to poll for the status of that transaction. Now that I've copied all this information, what I want to do now is to go to my VS Code, which is my preferred environment there for coding, to then initiate the lower transaction, basically doing the step one you see in the DApp in the code there, okay? So let's go to the code. So now we are about to get started on the code. I have copied the code over to my code editor here, and I'm going to start pasting in a lot of that information that I copied previously. But firstly, the first thing I need to do is to install the npm package. So I come down here and I do npm I AVN API. Now, what this will go on and do is to install the AVN API package. You can find the instructions for installing this on the gateway documentation. You can just use that code there in the folder that you want to use that in, and that's install the npm package there. At this current time, the version is 0.7.0, so you can kind of check that you're using the current version of the API. Now, coming back to the code, we're going to be pasting a lot of that information that we copied previously in here. So the first thing that we're going to copy over here is the code URL. So I'm going to get that code URL and just paste that code URL in there. The next thing is I want the SURI for the account that I'm going to be lowering from. So the account that has the funds that I need to send down to the Ethereum network. So I'm just going to get that seed information copied there and just put that here. For this, you can put in the seed of your account. You can put in the mnemonic of your account. That works. So now I have my, looking at line 6 here, I have my AVN gateway URL. Good. I have my SURI and my options sorted out. The next thing is my AVN relayer. I put in my AVN relayer now. So now I want to put in the Ethereum address that I want to receive this funds on Ethereum. Right. Now the amount of, now this is down to the smart contract of that token that I want to send. In this case, I'll be sending AVT that exists on the testnet. So I'm just going to get that smart contract address. So now I've put in that information. The next thing for me to put in is the amount of tokens I want to lower, the amount of funds I want to lower from Aventus to Ethereum. I can come in here and just paste in the amount I want to lower. Now that I have all this information in place, I can now save this. One thing to note about this amount here that differs from how it's handled on the DApp is on the DApp, you can put in a decimal, for example, 1.256. Here, you can do that. You'd have to put in the wave value of the amount that you want to lower when you're doing it via code. Now that I have all that information here, I can now proceed to submit the transaction. Do a node lower. And what this will do is it will send the transaction via the gateway to the blockchain. What I am expecting to see here is the UUID of this transaction submission on the gateway. Now, I am expecting this to be similar to what I see in the example output section in the code on the documentation. And there you have it. I have this right here, the UUID returned to me. So now I know that this transaction has been submitted to the blockchain via the gateway. I have that UUID returned to me there. And then I can now go to the DApp and then confirm that it's actually there in the step 2 part of it, So, but one thing to point out here about this is there is a way for you to pull for the status of the transaction using code. Now, like I did show you when I was in the documentation, you have that polling page that details how you can do it. It has an example code there for you, and you can implement that in your code and instantly not just tell the UUID, but also be able to know whether your transaction has been processed or rejected by the blockchain. So now let us go to the DApp and then go to the step 2 page and then continue this process there. Now we are back on the lowering DApp. Now, like I said, it's a two-step process. You got step 1 to initiate the lower and step 2 to claim the funds on Ethereum. Now let us go to step 2 since we have done step 1 via code. Coming to step 2, first thing I want to do is to make sure that I am looking at the right network, right? Because that will determine the information that is returned back to you. So I have 3 options here. I've got mainnet, testnet, and development. I know that I use testnet based on the Aventus gateway URL I copied from the documentation. So I can click on testnet here. Now, you do not need to connect your MetaMask wallet at this stage to just view any available or outstanding lowers that you have. But once you get to the point of claiming those funds, you will need to connect your MetaMask wallet. So right now you have 2 options. I can either search via the AVN sender address, that is the address that held the funds on the Aventus network. I can do this by the Aventus address or by the public key of that address, or I can search via the address of the recipient on Ethereum that will be receiving the funds. Either one will work to show you the status of the same transaction. So I come in here and put in the address of the Aventus account that held the funds on the Aventus network. I can click on search, and that will go and search all the outstanding transactions, all the outstanding lowers for that particular transaction. Come in here, I can immediately tell this, from the status being read, that it is awaiting data. Now, if the status was green and said available, then I know that that's available for me to withdraw, and I can withdraw this, right? So just so you know that this is what it would look like. However, I do have funds that are available for me to claim on the recipient account. So I can also show you that and then walk you through the process of what it would be like to claim the funds on Ethereum. So putting this in here, I can see I have some outstanding lowers here. But then looking at the bottom, I have one set. I have about 10 of a particular token here that I can claim on Ethereum that's available for me to do that now. So I can go on and click on claim. But again, I have to remember I have not connected my MetaMask wallet yet. So I have to go back up and connect my MetaMask wallet, of which I get the pop-up to do this. And then I unlock my wallet and I connect. Like you will see rightly here, because it is a test network, I am connected to the Gweli testnet, and that is my address there. I can then proceed down to claim these funds now on Ethereum, of which I get the MetaMask pop-up here again, and I can then proceed to confirm this, and there you have it. My Ethereum transaction has been submitted, the funds are on their way, and I can view the transaction on the Etherscan there by clicking on that link there. So this brings me to the end of this video. I have shown you where to find the information. If you want to do this via code, you can find that in our gateway documentation. I've walked you through copying the example code there, bringing it into your own workspace, filling in the details as is relevant for your code, and then submitting that transaction via code, doing the step one away from the DApp itself. And then coming back to the DApp to do the step two of claiming those tokens on Ethereum. I hope you really enjoy using this DApp and you're doing things this way. Take care.